And that sets up my comment because technological neutrality, which nonetheless gives a product which is so high, which favors a product which its cost is so high it can never be used, on net has less of a benefit than something which may not be as quite as carbon neutral, but nonetheless is so much less expensive that it is able to be more widely used. And I think we would agree upon that. And so that sets up my question for Mr. Simmons. The hydrogen credit, which rewards cleaner energy based on life cycle analysis, but on terms of the way that we're developing the hydrogen, low carbon hydrogen, they're all in the early commercialization stage. The administration seems to be focused on benefiting green hydrogen rather than the blue hydrogen, which will be far cheaper and more plentiful, even if it is at the outset not quite as low in terms of carbon life cycle benefit. So tell me, from your perspective, if we're going to implement a carbon tax credit in a way that promotes growth in the clean hydrogen industry, would you accept my analysis that there has to be some interplay between the expense of the final product, therefore its usefulness, versus maybe the purity of it, but the expense so high it cannot be used?
Sure, and I would add to that. While I was at the Department of Energy, I oversaw the hydrogen fuel cell technology office. One of the keys to making the hydrogen economy happen is massive amounts of hydrogen. We don't need just a little bit, we need an incredible amount, because with hydrogen you can do all kinds of things. You can decarbonize steel, for example. You can achieve much greater decarbonization of the grid, and if we dramatically limit what is available, like the hydrogen that is available with the tightest definition they can put on it, it just makes it more difficult to grow a hydrogen economy.
And do you know right now, because I think of it being about 3x, but the cost differential between green hydrogen and blue hydrogen right now?
I don't have that number off the top of my head.
I do think of it being about 3x, but I can't quite recall that. Now, as regards our energy policy vis-a-vis China, Mr. Simmons, staying with you, I feel like I'm on a game show. The government is investing heavily to lower the pollution intensity of our energy and manufacturing. That's why we're here today. But clearly, if all we do is set up carbon leakage going to China, where energy-intensive enterprises migrate from here to there because they don't enforce environmental regulations, we have, on net, more global air pollution, if you will, and we also lose our manufacturing base and the jobs that go along with it, and we all want to keep those jobs. So I'm begging the answer, but is there a global climate benefit to replacing the more carbon-intense Chinese products with a lower carbon-intensive product made here in the United States?
Certainly that is the case, and it is not, I mean, it is carbon intensity, it is the intensity of other types of it is the intensity of like criteria air pollutants, NOx, SOx, those sorts of pollutants. Everything here is done cleaner, it's done more efficiently than it is in China.
I think I know that 20% of the SOx and NOx on our West Coast, of course, of interest to us all, but particularly to my chair, is blown over by trade winds from China's coal-fired plants on their most western coast. Now, knowing that the strength of their economy is also fueling their military rise and their foreign policy adventures such as Belt and Road and String of Pearls, would replacing the economic advantage of products migrating there be of advantage to the United States?
Certainly, certainly.
Okay. Now, along those lines, obviously I'm setting up Ms. Harris, Dr. Harris, I'm sorry. Yesterday, before the House China Select Committee, Ambassador Lighthizer expressed his endorsement of a carbon border adjustment mechanism. My office calls that a foreign pollution fee. And particularly, exactly as I set it up, that strength of their economy that is created by them attracting energy-intensive enterprises, because they don't enforce pollution laws, allows them to increase their their health. So as someone who represents U.S. workers and environmental groups, your thoughts in terms of setting up a system which forced the Chinese product to reflect the carbon intensity that they are emitting into the atmosphere, as opposed to the U.S., where we internalize that cost, we add it to the cost of the product, but perhaps creating a competitive disadvantage if you only look at price.
Well, the Inflation Reduction Act is supposed to do exactly the opposite of that, which is pull things back here to the United States and re-onshore them.
So it's supposed to, if you will, encourage companies to come back. It seems to do it more by those subsidizing the cost of our abatement process as opposed to penalizing China for their lack of enforcement of an abatement process. And I think that's where a carbon border adjustment mechanism, I think, would force them to. It's the same goal, but it does it by internalizing the cost to their price. I'm over. Thank you for your indulgence.
I